Hi team, welcome to Ask Claire, where we run a Q&A in women's health issues and just general fitness advice for women. Now, this myth we're going to bust today is about pregnancy. So there's kind of two converging myths on exercise in pregnancy. One is that you should not start doing anything new, including exercise, once you find out you're pregnant. And number two is that you can continue doing what you've always done when you find out you're pregnant. And both of these are kind of two extremes, and they're myths because the truth is somewhere in the middle. So number one, if you don't currently exercise when you find out you're pregnant, you should absolutely start today, okay? Being sedentary is actually quite harmful for you and your baby, but going walking every day and including some pregnancy-specific strength training exercises has so many benefits to both you and your baby. Women who are physically active throughout their pregnancy, they have less back pain, they experience less constipation, they have a decreased risk of developing gestational diabetes, preeclampsia. They have a decreased risk of having an emergency C-section birth. They're more likely to maintain a healthy weight during pregnancy, and they're more likely to return to a healthy weight in the postnatal period. And they enjoy, improved overall fitness, a stronger heart, and blood vessels. It's also fabulous for their mood. Conversely, it's not quite true that you can keep doing what you've always done when you fall pregnant. In university-age nalparious women, rates of stress incontinence in certain sports is more than twice that of general populations. And pregnancy is another risk factor in developing pelvic dysfunctions, of which stress incontinence is one. So pregnant women need to modify, which is not the same as making it easy. A lot of modifications are either simplifying or changing the position, not necessarily making it lighter or doing less. But there needs to be a range of factors that need monitoring, and not just by you, by a women's health physio, by an obstetrician, by a midwife, or by an appropriately qualified personal trainer. So if you're training pregnant women without that, please stop, refer out. So the factors you want to start monitoring include their pelvic floor. So they need to have it checked, especially if they're participating in a high impact sport. So in this study done on women that haven't had kids, trampolining and athletics were the two highest risk activities for stress incontinence. Swimming and golf were the two lowest. So if your female client who's just fallen pregnant is doing CrossFit with you, you need to factor pelvic floor health. So they need to be monitored through their pregnancy by a physio who's qualified to look at it and touch it, okay? If they won't go to see one, you can monitor for symptoms, but I would err on the side of conservative because once it's stretched, it's stretched. You need to also modify for their abdominal wall. So the abs will stretch, will separate, and the linea alba will stretch. But there's no sense in stretching it and separating them any further than necessary. So you need to watch for symptoms that there's too much pressure in her abdominal region. You'll see that through doming, and hopefully you'll see it before it means hernia. So monitor, get appropriately qualified. We also need to understand she has a higher base metabolic rate and a higher core temperature. So she'll get hotter and sweatier sooner than she did before, but she'll also have a higher blood volume, which means she can offload heat more efficiently than she could before. She'll also have some blood sugar factors that come into play, and when you're changing levels, like burpees, blood pressure, blood sugar, all those sorts of things start to affect how she responds to those activities. Her blood pressure will also fluctuate. So because blood volume doesn't happen at the same rate as blood is needed to circulate, if that makes any sense. So there may be a time where she has high capillary number, but not enough blood to fill the spaces with good pressure, and vice versa. If she has high blood pressure, you're going to need to modify her exercises so that you're not putting more pressure into her system, right? So like holding breath kind of exercises or overhead. We are qualified as personal trainers to monitor blood pressure, and it's advisable to do that with your pregnant clients. Other factors include center of gravity and increased joint laxity. It doesn't happen at the same time for every pregnant woman, but generally she will get wobblier and her center of gravity gets higher, which means wobblier and higher means higher fall risk. And it also, her organs and her fascia are displaced by the growing baby, which will also change how the rest of her body is loaded, right? Which also affects her balance. It affects her posture, and little like other things like her digestion will be affected by the fact there's a baby in there. So this has to have an impact on your exercise selection, or if you're a trainer, on your exercise prescription. So it's not entirely true that you can continue doing what you've always done. You will have to modify. And the moral is that, you know, perhaps some women can continue doing a modified version of their sport, but do it under the supervision of an appropriately qualified professional. And if you're a personal trainer, then get appropriately qualified or refer your pregnant clients out.